Frank Caprio, been a judge for 40 years, seen thousands of cases, met all kinds of people. But today, when he opened the file, he was confused. Timothy Chen, 21 years old. Offense, running red lights, 3 times. Same intersection, same month, sometimes same day? Frank frowned. 3 times? Same place? How does this happen? The prosecutor didn't understand either. Your Honor, this isn't normal. It's like it's intentional. But when Timothy sat in the courtroom, what Frank saw wasn't intent. It was confusion. And at that moment, Frank understood. Today, he would learn something. When Timothy entered the courtroom, his hands were over his ears. The lights were too bright. People were talking too much. Everything was too loud. His mother, Margaret Chen, was beside him. She touched his shoulder gently. Timothy, calm down. This place is safe. Timothy nodded, but his hands stayed over his ears. Frank watched and saw something. This young man wasn't like the others. Frank looked at the file. 3 red light violations. October 15th, 2:30 p.m. Elmwood Avenue and Main Street. October 18th, 2:35 p.m. Elmwood Avenue and Main Street. October 22nd, 2:32 p.m. Elmwood Avenue and Main Street. Same intersection, almost same time, and caught 3 times. Frank looked up. Timothy Chen? Timothy nodded, but didn't look at Frank. Eyes on the floor, hands on his knees, swaying slightly. Timothy, you ran red lights 3 times at the same intersection. Do you know this? Timothy nodded. Yes. So why? Why 3 times in the same place? Timothy didn't answer, just kept swaying. Frank was confused. 40 years as a judge. But this was the first time seeing this situation. The young man was quiet, but not defensive. Not scared either. Just somewhere else. Mother, Margaret, stood up. Your Honor, if I may, can I explain? Yes, please. Margaret took a deep breath. My son Timothy is on the autism spectrum, high-functioning autism. He can talk, drive, but some things are different for him. Frank paused. Autism. He'd heard of it, of course, but couldn't say he truly understood it. Different? What do you mean? And at that moment, Frank's education began. But you haven't heard the most surprising part yet. Margaret leaned forward. Your Honor, for Timothy the world is too intense, sounds too loud, lights too bright, crowds too chaotic, and rules aren't always clear. Frank frowned. But traffic rules are clear. Red stop, green go, simple. Simple for you, said Margaret kindly. Complex for Timothy. How complex? Margaret looked at Timothy. Timothy, can you tell him? Why did you run the red light? Timothy, still not looking at Frank, spoke. His voice was monotone but clear. Green light too bright, hurts my eyes, must close them. But if I close, can't see. So I wait. But while waiting, it turns red. Then green again. But still bright. Loop, loop, loop. Frank stopped and slowly began to understand. So you don't see the green light because it's too bright? I see it, but it hurts. Sensory overload. Too much stimulation. Brain gets tired. Margaret continued. Autistic people, Your Honor, react differently to sensory input. A normal green light to you is like a blazing projector to Timothy. Unbearable. Frank leaned back in his chair. 40 years as a judge. First time thinking a traffic light could be too bright. So why the same intersection? Why always Elmwood and Main? Timothy answered. Because it's on my route. Going home. Every day, same route. Routine. Routine is safe. Change is hard. Frank nodded. And learned something else. For autistic people, routine is life-defining. So why do you run the red every time? Why don't you stop? And Timothy's answer changed Frank's world. Wait, because now the real lesson begins. Timothy began to speak, and Frank, for the first time, truly understood how an autistic mind works. I love rules. Rules are clear. Rules are safe. Stop at red is a good rule, but there's another rule. You can go when cars are waiting. That rule exists too. They contradict. Frank leaned forward. What do you mean they contradict? Red light exists. I stopped. But no car behind, no car coming. Intersection empty. Then why am I stopping? No danger. Safe. So I go, Margaret explained. Your Honor, Timothy thinks literally. Stop at red says, what, not why. For Timothy, if there's no danger, stopping is illogical. Frank's mouth dropped. Because Timothy's logic was actually logical, just different. But Timothy, the rule is stop at red, car or no car. Why? Said Timothy. Why should I stop at an empty intersection? Frank wanted to answer, but had no answer. Because really, why? The rule, that's why. But for an autistic mind, that's why wasn't an answer. Margaret continued. Autistic people, Your Honor, struggle with social rules. Traffic rules are also social rules. Everyone stops at red because society wants it. But for Timothy, this isn't logical. He wants literal truth. Is there danger? No? Then no need to stop. Frank sat in his chair and thought and understood. For the first time, he truly grasped that autism wasn't just a diagnosis, it was a different way of thinking. So, Timothy, how do you know there's no danger? I look. Right, left, forward. No car, no person. Safe, I go. But police see you and ticket you. Yes. Timothy nodded. This confuses me, because I did something safe, but got punished. Not logical. Frank, for the first time in his life, thought a traffic violation could be logical. It was logical for Timothy. But the real shock was in Margaret's next words. Your Honor, said Margaret, voice trembling. I taught Timothy traffic rules for 2 years, practiced every day. Stop at red, go at green. But I couldn't teach why. Because I don't know why myself. I just said it's the rule. And for Timothy, that wasn't enough. Frank looked at Margaret. What he saw wasn't a mother. What he saw was a tired warrior. When Timothy got his driver's license, I was so happy, Margaret continued, because this means independence. For autistic children, independence is hard. But Timothy did it, took the test, passed, everything proper. But the real world isn't in the test book. Timothy, Frank said gently, did you run red lights during your driving test? No, because examiner was there. He had a rule. Stop at red in all conditions. Clear, I did it. So why do you do it now? Because no examiner. I'm alone. My decision. And my decision is, empty intersection is safe. Frank nodded and understood. Timothy was following rules, according to his own logic. Mrs. Margaret, said Frank, is Timothy a dangerous driver? No, said Margaret quickly. Timothy is the most careful driver, follows speed limits, wears seatbelt, doesn't look at phone. Just this one intersection. Sensory overload plus literal thinking. This combination creates a problem. Frank turned to the prosecutor. Did you check Timothy's driving record? The prosecutor looked at the file. Yes, Your Honor. He's had a license for 3 years. Except these 3 violations, no tickets, no accidents. Clean record. Frank was surprised. 3 years, only these 3 violations? Yes, sir. Frank looked at Timothy. This young man wasn't dangerous, just different. Timothy, Frank said, do you like driving? For the first time, Timothy looked at Frank, just for a second. Then eyes went back down. Yes, cars have rules. Clear. Stay right, turn left, speed limit 50. Clear. I like it. Frank smiled. So what should we do about this intersection? I don't know, Timothy said honestly, and Frank was honest too. I don't know either. But the incredible part was what Frank did next. Frank turned to the court clerk. Linda, connect me to Rhode Island Department of Transportation, now. Linda was surprised. Your Honor, during court session? Yes, now, urgent. Linda picked up the phone. 2 minutes later, the line connected. This is Judge Frank Caprio. Connect me to Transportation Engineering Department. The courtroom was silent. Frank was speaking on speakerphone. A man answered. Engineering, Tom Martinez. Mr. Martinez, I'm Judge Caprio. I have a question about traffic lights. How bright is the green light at Elmwood Avenue and Main Street intersection? How bright? Standard LED light, Your Honor. 400 to 500 candela. Frank looked at Margaret. Is this bright? Margaret nodded. For autistic people, yes. Very bright. Frank turned to the phone. Mr. Martinez, is it possible to adjust brightness lower for drivers with sensory sensitivity? Tom paused. Technically possible, yes, but we've never received such a request. You're receiving it now. Can the green light at this intersection be 30% less bright, but still visible? I think yes. Special filter can be added. How long will it take? Maybe 2 weeks? Make it 1 week, and one more thing. Put a sign at that intersection. Sensory-friendly traffic light. Autism awareness. Let people see it. Learn from it. Tom laughed in surprise. Your Honor, this will be a first. Nothing like this exists in the U.S. Then let Rhode Island be first. Can you do it? Yes, sir, I can. Thank you. Frank hung up and turned to the courtroom. Timothy was still swaying, but now there was a slight smile on his face. Margaret was crying. Your Honor, you... Really? Really, said Frank. Because I learned today. Rules don't fit everyone. Sometimes rules must change. Sometimes the world must adapt. But the story doesn't end here. Because Frank's transformation was just beginning. Frank turned to Timothy. Timothy, I'll ask you a question now, and I want an honest answer. At that intersection, if the green light is less bright, can you wait? Timothy thought. Thought for a long time. Then answered. Yes. If light isn't bright, I can see. Doesn't hurt. Then I'll wait. Are you sure? Yes, because rule will be clear. Go when you see green. If I can see, I'll follow. Frank nodded. What about other intersections? Do you have the same problem elsewhere? Timothy nodded. Yes, but Elmwood is brightest, hardest. Frank picked up the phone again, called Tom Martinez. Tom, it's me again. One more thing. Survey all traffic lights in the city. Which is brightest? Adjust all to sensory-friendly level, visible but not disturbing. Your Honor, this is a big project, maybe 6 months. 3 months, and work with DMV. Add a new section to driver's test. Support for drivers with special needs. Autism, ADHD, sensory processing disorders. Cover all. This is a huge change, and very necessary. How many more Timothys are there? How many families are struggling? How many children can't be independent just because they're different? Tom took a deep breath. You're right. I'll do it. And Your Honor, thank you. We should have thought of this. You're thinking now, that's enough. Frank turned to the court. In the case of Timothy Chen, the court makes this decision. Fine completely dismissed. Record will be cleared. Because this violation wasn't intentional, there was a system error. The courtroom froze in shock. System error? Yes, Frank said. System error. Because the traffic system isn't for everyone. It's designed only for neurotypical people. Autistic people, people with ADHD, people with other differences weren't considered. This isn't fair, and today we start changing it. Margaret stood up, applauded. Then the courtroom, the entire courtroom gave a standing ovation. Timothy was still swaying, but now smiling. But the most powerful moment was what Timothy said to Frank. After court ended, Timothy and Margaret were about to leave. But Timothy stopped, turned and approached Frank. "Your Honor?" Frank turned. "Yes, Timothy?" Timothy still didn't make eye contact, but was speaking. "I want to thank you. You listened. Most people don't listen. Most people hear autism and think disability. But you thought difference. This is important." Frank's eyes filled. "Timothy, you taught me so much today." "I did?" "Yes. You taught me to think differently. I've been a judge for 40 years. Thought I knew everything. But today, I learned I don't. And learning is more valuable than knowing." Timothy nodded. "I learned too. From you. I learned that rules can change. If rules aren't fair, they should change. This is a good rule." Frank smiled. "Yes, a very good rule." Timothy said one more thing, and Frank never forgot it. "Your Honor, the world is hard for autistic people. Too loud, too bright, too chaotic. But sometimes, someone listens, someone understands, someone changes. You were that someone today? Thank you." And Timothy, with his mother, left the courtroom, his hands still swaying slightly, but head high, shoulders relaxed. Frank watched and cried. Tears of joy. Because today he hadn't just solved a case, he'd started changing a world. 3 months later, the intersection at Elmwood and Main changed. The green light was softer now, still visible but not eye-burning, and beside it was a sign. Sensory-friendly traffic light, autism awareness. For everyone, embracing difference. Timothy passed through that intersection every day, and every day he could stop now, could see the green light. It didn't hurt. 6 months later, Rhode Island DMV launched a new program. Inclusive Driving Program. For autism, ADHD, visual impairments, hearing impairments, support for all. Special education materials, sensory-friendly test environments, individual assessments. And Timothy became the program's first instructor. "I'm autistic," he told new drivers. "This isn't my weakness, this is my difference, and difference is beautiful." A year later, Frank spoke at a national conference. Justice for all. Topic: Special needs and the legal system. "I was a judge for 40 years, Frank said. Saw thousands of cases, but the most important case was Timothy Chen, because Timothy taught me. Justice isn't just applying rules. Justice is questioning rules. Are rules fair for everyone? If not, rules must change." Timothy thinks literally and asked me, "Why stop at empty intersection?" I couldn't answer. Because there's no logical answer. The rule is a social contract. But for autistic people, social contracts are unclear. That day I changed. I no longer blindly apply rules. I ask, is this rule logical? Is this rule fair? And if not, I change it. The conference hall gave a standing ovation. But Frank's speech didn't end there. After Timothy, I saw other cases, Frank continued. A teen with ADHD was found disrespectful for speaking fast. But he wasn't disrespectful. His brain worked fast. A woman with Down syndrome got a parking violation because she interpreted the handicapped parking symbol as wheelchair only. I don't use wheelchair, can't park, she thought. Literal thinking. A man with visual impairment exceeded speed limit because the speedometer was written in a font hard for him to read. In each case, I asked the same question. Did this person intentionally break a rule, or did the system exclude this person? Most times, it was the latter. And each time, we changed the system. Signs clearer, fonts more readable, lights more adaptable, court processes more flexible. Because I learned, justice isn't one standard. Justice is understanding each individual's needs and adapting as a society. Frank showed a photo on screen. Timothy in driver's seat, smiling. This is Timothy today. 3 years clean record, no violations. Because the system changed. He didn't change, he was already perfect. The system adapted to him. And now Timothy is independent, goes to work, sees friends, lives life, because someone listened. My request to you, listen, learn, change. Because justice isn't just in courtrooms, justice is every day, everywhere, for everyone. The conference hall applauded for 5 minutes standing, and Timothy was there, in the back of the room, applauding, hands not over his ears. The noise didn't bother him anymore, because this noise was supportive noise. Today, 5 years later, Timothy is 26, computer programmer. Software company hired him because literal thinking is perfect for coding. I find bugs immediately, Timothy says, because I pay attention to details others don't see. I see. Timothy still passes through Elmwood and Maine. Every time, looks at the sign. Autism-Friendly Light. Smiles. This sign isn't just for me, he says. This sign is a message to everyone. Difference isn't a problem. Difference is value. Margaret now runs a non-profit. Autism Driving Support. Teaching driving to autistic youth. But not just rules, teaching why. We don't say, "Stop at red," says Margaret. We say, "Stop at red because other cars are passing." We don't say, "Go at green." We say, "Go at green because it's your turn." Context. Everything is context. Frank is now 75, retired, but still giving talks, schools, conferences, training programs. I tell Timothy's story, he says, because Timothy gave me the most important lesson. Knowing you don't know is the beginning of wisdom. I was a judge for 40 years, but truly learning started with Timothy. One day, Frank and Timothy spoke together at a panel. From different perspectives. Frank explained judge perspective. Timothy explained autistic perspective. In Q&A, someone asked, "Judge Caprio, what did you learn from Timothy?" Frank looked at Timothy. Timothy smiled. "I learned," Frank said, "that there's no such thing as normal, just different normals, and every normal is valuable. Timothy's normal is different from my normal. But that doesn't make it wrong, just different. And I learned that change isn't hard. Change is about willingness. If you want to understand someone, you will. If you want to support someone, you will. If you want to change a system, you will." Timothy showed me. I just watched and learned. Someone else asked, "Timothy, what did you learn from Judge Caprio?" Timothy thought for a while, then answered, "I learned that empathy can be learned. I'm autistic. Empathy is hard for me. But Judge Caprio showed, if empathy isn't natural, it can be learned. Through listening, questions, curiosity. He didn't know autism, but wanted to learn. He didn't understand my world, but tried to understand. And this is enough, because effort is more important than result." When the panel ended, Frank and Timothy hugged. First time. Timothy didn't like hugging, sensory difficult, but this time a brief hug, because Frank was special. "Thank you," said Timothy. "No," said Frank. "Thank you. You were my best teacher. In Rhode Island, now 47 intersections are sensory-friendly, lights adjustable, not bright but visible, and at every intersection, a sign. Traffic for everyone, embracing difference." In 5 years, 89 autistic youth got driver's licenses. All went through special program, all successful drivers. "Autism isn't a barrier," says program director. "Autism is different processing, and we make the system compatible with that processing. This is justice." Frank's story appeared in national news. Judge changes traffic system for autistic teen. And comments, "This is real justice. Frank Caprio, hero. Timothy, inspiration." But Frank doesn't feel like a hero. "I became a student," he says. "Timothy was teacher. He showed me the world differently. I just listened." Timothy's mother, Margaret, wrote a book. Teaching the Teacher, an autistic son, a judge, and a systems transformation. In the book, the whole story, court day, phone call, light change, and after, system revolution. Timothy's story, writes Margaret, isn't just a court case. This is how society can change. One person listens, one person understands, one person acts, and society changes. Frank wrote the book's foreword. Timothy Chen gave me life's most important lesson. Knowing isn't enough. Learning is necessary. I was a judge for 40 years. But truly being a judge, I learned from Timothy. Because judging isn't just applying rules. Judging is understanding people, understanding situations, understanding context, and being fair. Timothy taught me what justice is. Justice isn't same treatment for everyone. Justice is needed treatment for everyone, and this means different treatment. Equality is same for everyone. Justice is appropriate for everyone. Timothy understood this. Now I do too. The book became a bestseller. Schools added to curriculum, law schools made case studies, and Timothy speaks at a university every year. Autism and Society class. I'm different, he tells students, but different isn't wrong. Different is different, and your job is to understand different, not try to change, understand. Judge Caprio didn't try to change me, he changed the system, and this is real acceptance, real support. My request, when you see someone different, don't ask, how can we fix them? Ask, how can we support them? The difference is big. And every time students applaud, some cry, because Timothy's message is simple but powerful. I am as I am, and this is enough. Now it's your turn. When you see someone different, what do? Try to change them or try to understand. Blame the system or change the system. Because every day there's a Timothy, thinking differently, seeing differently, living differently. And your choice changes their life. Frank listened and learned. Timothy taught and changed. System adapted and improved. Your turn. Will you listen?